Chair lays out Senate Bill 5 and recognizes its author, Senator Perry, to explain the measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Feels a little like Groundhog Day. Senate Bill 5 is Consumer Health Product Restrictions Regulations, and is intended to effectively regulate / remove some of the products that are currently on the market due to the nature and what they have potential and have caused in history of causing. So I'm going to go down. It's going to be a little more lengthy layout than I would have normally do, but I think it's important to address some of the narratives that are out there, some of the things that's happened since the session where we banned effectively and regulated a large part of what was good with the hemp plant productions, and get back on a level playing field with some of the stuff. Senate Bill 5, if passed, will allow CBD and CBG, as well as 3 other products: whole hemp seeds, hemp seed protein powder, hemp seed oil will be legal. Those are currently legal today through the FDA. I think one thing you need to understand today, it is with almost 99% assurity, most of the products that are being sold off these retail shelves today through these hemp stores and other venues is illegal federally. We have court cases building by the week that support that. So most of the stuff that we'll talk about today is already illegal federally, or gave the states the right to regulate in any fashion they choose to, and we are seeing that play out every day. So to be clear, CBD, CBG, generally recognized as safe, or GROS is the acronym as designated by the FDA, whole hemp seeds, hemp protein powder, hemp seed oil, and it will remain legal. To put that in perspective, those are some of the products you might find at a grocery store. Lotions, protein supplements, those kind of things. They're never proved to be hot, and you cannot, in its purest form, get them to be hot. So they're not grown hot. They're the particular cannabinoid of the plant, so those would remain legal. Federal courts have said about THC bans, and I want to make the distinction. We should be talking about THC and not hemp. Hemp was an agricultural product that was legislated through in 2018 with roots as back as far as 2014. And the federal law dictates through the hemp plant what is a legal hemp plant, only in the agricultural code. It clearly gave in the agricultural code, and has been upheld in not one, but 9 federal courts, 3 U.S. Circuit Courts, 4, 7, and 8, and 6 U.S. District Courts, that states have the right to regulate, ban, do whatever they want to with respect to the product that comes from the hemp plant that is federally regulated. So that's the origin of where this confusion starts, is the federal agricultural code set up a legal parameter for hemp plant with the expectation of being a construction, clothing, paper market. Idaho has banned all THC products and have the second most robust industry with respect to fiber market, which was the intended purpose of the Ag Bill. Congress, both U.S. House of Representatives and U.S. Senate, have each passed a bill out of committee that will ban the sale of consumer health products containing THC nationwide by clarifying that consumer products that contain THC are not hemp. The U.S. Senate bill was voted out of committee 27-0 with broad bipartisan support. A nationwide ban is expected to be tried and come during the 2025 session. I get the question, CBD or CBG get you high? And the answer is absolutely not, and that's why they're specifically exempted through the federal and will be exempted through SB 5. Are there any products being sold that only contain CBD and CBG? Yes, there are, as I alluded to those products earlier. Will CBD or CBG be full spectrum? And full spectrum is where the industry has gone and taking something that is not hot and through synthesization added multiple other cannabinoids and varieties and chemically altering those typically and producing a very high potent THC product. So full spectrum is not legal under Senate Bill 5. Hemp plant material is legal if it stays under 0.3% dry weight. A lot of conversations about milligrams and dry weight and the confusion that creates and some of the red herrings and false narratives that have been created by the industry to make you believe that any product that derives from the hemp legal plant has to be ultimately legal is absolutely false. What's lost in that conversation, it's not about the milligrams. It's about the concentration of THC that the synthesization pulls. And it's that concentrated extract that creates the high. In a word, if you get high from the product, it is illegal. That's plain and simple, and that's what the synthesization of these products do. There's actually the organic conversation mixed up in this. So we still have the cannabis plant, or the hemp plant, if you will, being grown in a flower format, and it ends up being a smokable. It looks just like a pot bag. Don't let the name deceive you. It's not a flower. It comes from a hemp flower, but it ends up on the shelves as a bag of weed, no different than what we would have seen as kids. The distinction is that statistics are saying, the research shows that that bag is 15% plus, on average, THC content. To put that in perspective, I call it my day, or maybe my grandparents' day, or the 60s hippie day. This THC was about 5% or less. So they've added 10 points on average, and as high as some people say, up to 80% in those bags is being produced and sent out off the shelf. Will it impact jobs? Big narrative for the industry. 53,000 jobs will be lost, and an $8 billion industry will go away. Here's how that breaks down, and this is based on the licensures of TD required at the dishes. Today, you can go on dishes and find out who is registered as a manufacturer and who is licensed to sell hemp, not THC, hemp, but they're selling THC. If you look at that list, there is about 8,000 names there under the distributorships, or the dispensaries, or the retail, if you will. The truth be known, there's about 1,991 to say 2,000 that are what you see when you drive down the street and you look over to the right and the left on every corner now in every city, no matter what size, you have a hemp or a head shop. That is about 2,000 of the 8,000 locations or businesses. The truth of the matter is, some, if not the majority of those, were selling tobacco products prior to 2019. They ain't going out of business probably. And the rest of the 6,000, their employment is your gas stations, convenience stores, Walgreens, CVS's, those people, they're not going out of business. So it is just a false narrative that you're going to put me out of business if this bill passes, because most of those stores existed selling other product lines. If you are in the business of selling synthetic pot or synthetic THC today, you are illegal federally, and you are illegal actually as the state law goes if you're selling the flower. So the best business narrative that the industry has perpetuated out there is factually not accurate, and you can verify that from dishes and tell what stores they are. In addition to dishes, you can look down that list, and a large majority of them are foreign nationally owned, Middle Eastern descents, lots of different flavors of different people owning these folks as far as nationals go. So I can tell you that the DEA clearly has outlawed everything that's being sold on the shelves today at a retail level in Texas. And they are beginning to get very active in pursuing these warehouses and other things. And there's ongoing investigations probably out here somewhere that will tie up that there's a suspicion of national and international connections with laundering money. Not only to say these countries are benefited from hurting our people. So there is that list you can go verify. It's not what Charles Perry says. This is what is actually in the system today at dishes that we required under the Hemp Act. Does the bill regulate non-consumable products? No. Again, going back to what's on the shelf at most of your grocery store chains. Clothing, fiber, fuel, all of those are under the Ag Code. They didn't get touched. So I hear a lot about veterans needing and using this stuff, and other folks that do seek relief and some gain relief from it. First of all, we have a very robust teacup program, probably the most robust teacup program in the nation after this session's last passage. We added chronic pain. We added, I believe it was irritable bowel syndrome. There's a certain element that comes with that. We changed the chronic pain definition where just about anybody and everybody afflicted with pain or mental health disorders that seek relief currently through the retail establishments at gas stations and self-medicate should be under TCUP because that's more of a holistic approach. We don't do mental health and other ailments with medication only. We typically trying to find the root of the problem and embrace that with a holistic continuum of care. We never, as a state, said it's a good thing to do mental health or other chronic pain regimens at the retail dispensary where there's not a physician on site that knows what your history is, what your blood work is, and what you're doing. It forces you to a legitimate place for care that has hopes of fixing your actual issue and not just mask the symptoms. That is the best mental health policy, the best chronic pain policy, and it's consistent with what we have done as the state since I've been here for 15 years. In addition to that, we have spent millions and billions of dollars trying to keep drugs from coming into this country on the border. I've been here 15 years, and I can't not think of a single day when we did not support our law enforcement, the men and women that wear the badge and the gun every day to defend our safety and make our community safe. We've literally allowed an industry to spring up underneath our feet, screaming it's legal when it's not, and some have bought into that narrative, to produce the very same things, only probably worse because they're synthetic and others and in the hotter brands that we fight so hard to keep out of this country. It is inconsistent with who we are as a state to not support enforcement officers in their ability to get their heads around this and arms around it. And you'll hear from them later. It is not a regulatable situation. There is no way to stay ahead of the chemist. So just on those fronts alone, we as a state have a history of not allowing this type of stuff into the market. We've spent a lot of money keeping it out, and for those people that get caught doing it, we have severe penalties doing it. But yet we turn a blind eye when it's, quote, been labeled and packaged cutely and put out there that, well, it's just part of the hemp plant, when it actually does the same or worse things to the people that consume it. We did age gate. I hear from the industry, we'll be age gate. We'll keep 21 or under out of the stores. We won't sell it to them. Well, they've had 7 years. I guess 19 basically to now, 6, 7 years. They didn't age gate. Some of them did on their own. I guess some of them had a conscience about it. But age gating has never worked out. We get kids every day underage drinking that run their cars into people and kill them. Ask Mother Against Drunk Driving. They'll tell you that age gating doesn't keep liquor out of the hands of 21 and under. That's just another cover to legitimize a bad thing. So age gating is part of our bill because we do believe it's necessary to put it in there, but it is not a solution to keeping the bad stuff off. And for those that prey on that and say that's all we got to do, and that's what the industry's loudest about, is we want age gating. If you go down any of these provisions under this and other regulations with the industry, they don't want some of those. They only want the regulations that leave status quo in place that gives them cover to continue on what they're doing. To the store owners that have bought franchises, tied up large sums of their money, invested their life savings in this business model, and to the trial lawyers that are probably not listening but should be, this is your next class action suit. Since 2018, this has been federally illegal, and there's been harm done, and I can tell you the last almost 40, 50 days, I've had numerous people call me about their situation, but they're too embarrassed or grieving too hard to bring it to the forefront publicly. But if you want to set up a class action suit for people that have been harmed by cannabis use disorders, and you want to set up a class action suit based on this stuff was basically federally illegal from day one, I think you can make a lot of money. It's an $8 billion industry in Texas. So to those store owners that bought in good faith, believing what they were told and sold as a bill of goods, you have an alternative. You can go after these folks that took your money and lied to you, which is being borne out in the courts every day. Get a question, shouldn't CBD and CBG be available for people under 21? FDA studies have shown that CBD can cause liver damage, and in men, CBD can cause testicular problems. Epidiolex is an FDA-approved CBD prescription. If a person under 21 needs CBD, they can get a prescription from a doctor outside of the TCUP program. Even the stuff that we say is safe has harmful, proven, researchable medical issues. So the bill specifically, if you lie on your lab reports from the manufacturers, are required to certify the product, which they're playing enforcement roulette. If you literally walk away from here from anywhere today, it's catch me if you can mentality. There's so much money being made. I remind members that if you're in this industry, federal law prohibits these dollars from these deposits on these sales of these products being deposited. Now, some of these other states that have legalized recreational, I think they have banking systems that are in place to do it. I'm not aware of it, but the feds did so serious that did not want this to go where it has evolved to, that they did not want you to actually be able to transact businesses. They didn't want you to deposit money in their bank for fear that it would be based on drug sales. So at every level, this stuff is being exposed, but it's not new. It was exposed in 2018. Do not do this because. And this industry has ignored it, gotten by with it. They play roulette because they know we don't have the enforcement in place nor the regulatory framework to ever stay ahead of the chemistry. So you really have about 3 different top issues going on. Smokable hemp, the flower, which is the pot I described. It's marijuana flower. What the industry has done to skirt the event, how did they get here? I know a lot of people say, well, how are they doing this? Well, the industry, very cutely so, took the fact that Delta-9 was legalized at 0.3 or less in the plant from the agricultural code. They grow the flower, and what they add is a component, THCA. Now, when you light a joint made out of this product, it converts that Delta-9 to a hotter, more potent THC. Well, the feds figured out the formula that if you take the Delta-9 and multiply it times 0.87.7, you then will get the TCH content from the Delta-9 plant, which may be legal. I've seen certified reports that says Delta-9 0.34. There's a little tolerance given. So it's a legal plant on Delta-9 stage, but 2 layers down, you'll see THCA, and it can be as high as 30-40%. So the total THC of that joint is way over what should be consumed. It does really bad things. And so the industry, very cutely so, ignores the second part of that formula. They just treat it like it doesn't exist and it's not relevant because it didn't speak to Delta-9, it just spoke to the total THC. So that's how they get a hold of this in manufacturers. Edibles and drinkables. Only Delta-9 THC, aka Delta-9 distillate, the distillate, is illegal. It's hash oil. It is a controlled substance. There has been several breweries try to figure out how to mix THC with the beverage to come up with a drink, and several have tried it. Some are still selling it. Several of them figured out that we cannot stabilize and predict the outcomes from drinking one. And what I mean by that, alcohol, I hear the comparison all the time, is worse than this. I'm not going to make the distinction. I think it's kind of having the argument, do I want to get bit by a cobra or do I want to get bit by a rattlesnake? They both kill you. It's not a debatable issue. Alcohol has its faults, and we see the damage of alcohol. We have for decades. We've seen the misery it creates in family environment. We spend billions of dollars on drug and alcohol addiction through this budget every 2-year cycles to deal with a broken family. So I'm not going to espouse the merits of alcohol. There are none. That ship's done sailed. But what's different is this molecular structure of the plant is fat soluble. What does that really mean in terms of practicality? Under alcohol, you pee it out within 24 hours. Your body gets rid of it. It's water soluble. It moves quickly. Under THC, that cannabinoid plant is fat soluble. It attaches to your CBD1, CB2s. It attaches to your liver. it stays in your body a longer period of time. And when given the potency of what's created in these labs these days and what's being marketed and sold, what I'm going to is the breweries that were trying to figure it out, the reputable ones, figured out they could not figure out the outcomes. These were bar owners saying that after 2 drinks, they didn't recognize the patron that had been coming from drinking beer or alcohol for years, that they were having psychotic events and those kind of things. So that's the beverage component. So the weed and the beverage component, science says they're illegal and they're harmful. DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, federal level, synthetic cannabinoids are not hemp as of August 21, 2020 rules and are deemed controlled substances. They are controlled substances under the DEA Act. Introduction of food and beverage containing THC into interstate commerce is illegal. Let me tell you again. If you have a product, not the plant, but a product, and it has THC in it, and it comes across straight lines from another out-of-state or out-of-country manufacturer, it is illegal federally. So that would mean, if you're kind of following through, every product on the shelves in this state today that has THC component, which they all do, if they came in from out of state and weren't manufactured 100% solely in Texas, they would be illegal. We don't have that kind of manufacturing. Most of these products are coming from out of state. Litigation, I mentioned it earlier, as recent as a couple weeks ago, 8th Circuit Court, no other federal court ruled in Arkansas in favor of Texas. It wasn't our lawsuit, but the effect of it, it was in favor of what Texas is trying to do and wanting to do. No other federal court has held that state regulations of consumable hemp products are preempted by federal law. The 2018 Farm Bill, which is what these court cases are built on, explicitly states that state regulations are not preempted and they may be more stringent than federal law, even permitting the banning of production of hemp entirely. That provision in the Farm Act was being preemptive to see what could potentially happen in an industry that has, and gave the states the right to regulate or ban. And that is the court cases, non-federal, 3 Circuit, 4th, 7th, and 8th, 6 U.S. district courts have ruled in favor of the state's right to do this stuff. Alaska has a 0% THC ban. So here we're at today. We know how we got here. We know the loopholes and the games that are being played. The business argument for it, even if it were true, is not a basis to not do the right thing. We as a legislature, in my tenure and generations of our members just like me, have very few opportunities to turn the tide on things that we know are unarguably going to get worse and are not good. Not only that, we provided a legitimate prescriptive medical physician-directed program that not only deals with the physical issues that those people are dealing with, but the mental aspects can be routed to licensed professional mental health professionals, counselors, people that can work with them to address the root cause. So there's really nothing you can tell me, or I hope members today, that can explain why we can allow a retail dispensary outside of I'm going to lose money that fits within the wheelhouse of what's proper medically, what's proper mental health-wise, what's best for society. Since last session, which has not been that long ago, I've had 3 or 4 calls. I'll say one of them was a family friend of my daughter's, and I did not know this background. Son committed suicide after participating in these products. I got a text today from a juvenile detention center, 16-year-old in there, that what they would refer to him is a vegetable. after using this stuff. You don't know what you're getting in it. The quality control is all over the board. You will hear that we're legitimate actors. If you're a hemp grower in Texas, that's 181 acres out of 125 million potential acres of production. That's all that was tested and certified at USDA for Texas Hemp Program. I don't know how much of that's fiber and I don't know how much that's flour, but based on the registry for people manufacturing, I would tell you the bulk of it's flour, which is probably producing flour for the Delta 8s and other synthetic varieties. So yes, if your business model is producing flour for that purpose, and I suspect you're probably not legal anyway today based on state and federal, then your business is in trouble. But the ag industry in Texas never got off the ground because of this industry group shut it down with all of this stuff flooding the market before the ag groups could get ahead of it, and it ruined it. So no reputable business is losing its job. You'll hear testimony that there were raids made at 20-something plus in one city, and I think 2 shops were the only ones that had legitimate product on the shelf. Those are unicorns. A low-dose THC product in this market is a unicorn. It really isn't what they sell to stay open. With that, I'll take questions, members.
Thank you, Senator Perry. Senator Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Perry. Thank you for your hard work and for the details in which you destroyed all the arguments in favor of free market for these drugs that are out there. It's obvious that the opposition is based all their argument, not parts, all of their argument on outright lies and misrepresentations. You clearly show that there is no significant impact to businesses out there as a result of this. And I like the piece you added about there is an opportunity from some of those who often are castigated by this body, the trial lawyers, as an opportunity to actually go do something good and take on those companies that would hoodwinked with these agreements they entered into and take them into court. That's a good use of our legal system, a good use of actual trial lawyers helping folks out there. You clearly demonstrated that few businesses are going to be impacted by it. There'll be some in there, but it's not much different than if a manufacturer stopped making a product or two and it took it off their shelf. That's about the same thing. And it just galls me that how they have ignored the issue of age or tried to pretend like, oh, we can just, age. We've never been able to control anything with age. I mean, not just by a year or two. I'm talking about 8 and 9-year-olds, access to cigarettes and cigars and alcohol and beer. But it's regulated. They can't do that. Why would we think we could do any better with this? So they use that as an argument, which totally destroys any thought about trying to regulate. This is one of the things that's not possible. It's like trying to tell people to pick up water with their hands. It isn't going to work. And the issue of veterans. As a veteran, I'm particularly offended and aghast at using veterans as a battering ram. Veterans, yes, there are some that have a need for treatments, for support, as a result of their service and what they've done. But that's a holistic thing, as you brought out. It's not just give them a drug or let them self-medicate. There's a big difference between that. And the overwhelming majority of the veterans do not fall into that category of needing to have the help out there that this would go with and with the others that they're getting. And so it's certainly a good reflection of how slimy and dishonest the lobby has been against this. because every point they've used has been an outright lie in there. And not to mention the fact that we've been operating in violation of federal law. People are aghast sometimes. Well, the feds say we have to do this. We'll do the slightest little thing that the Fed said you have to do, even to the point of being ridiculous about it. And yet we have blatantly ignored this and operated in violation of federal law. But the lobbyists don't point that out in there. I guess the last question I have is, why isn't law enforcement today confiscating this and making some arrest? It sounds to me like what you described, if it's as illegal as where it is, that they could do this and they could help us with getting this by taking that bold step and starting to arrest some and confiscate some of this. So the last thing I want to talk about is the answer for the issue of the veterans, the teacup program. It's exactly what's needed. It's exactly the proper use of something that has questionable use when out in the public on its own. Targeted for those who have a medical need, have access to the doctor. We've expanded that. I think you got plans in there to expand it to whatever level is needed in order to use it properly. So there's not an argument out there that has been placed against this that has any validity. And I cannot see anybody that comes up here and testifies that any of these things should be done. I think we're bordering on being truthful in their testimony. And I'd warn them to be very careful in what they have to say. Truthful testimony is what we want, not fabricated lies, particularly about our veterans, our kids, and our families, and those who will be hurt by this. And the answer is, we'll regulate it. We'll regulate it by banning it, because we've tried regulation on other things. And thank you for bringing this up.
Thank you.